Yo, 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 what it do? We are back with yet another episode of the Tried and True podcast where I like to keep it a buck in all pennies. That's $100 with the viewers, the listeners, and my guests. We back at the content creation studio just in case I've taken a few episodes off and not told y'all who we're powered by in the first place. The content creation studio. Yes, sir. And without further ado, obviously, I got somebody sitting here that I'm going to introduce. You probably heard this voice in the background. I don't know that you've seen this face in the hot seat yet, right?
No.
Not yet? All right. Well, we back talking about chapter 8 of a book, which this woman helped to even make an actual thing. So I ain't going to talk too much about it in advance, but I do want to say that for obvious reasons, which you're about to find out, this person is extremely important to me and important to the journey that I have ahead of me, and a lot of the stuff that people admire me for having done. There's a strong woman behind it. So, your name and who you are. You making that face?
Oh my gosh, your coin. That's funny. Hey
Coin.
y'all. I'm Kahlea Kabir. You want me to say what I do,
Well,
or just who I?
well, who
that's
are
my
you to
name.
me? You know, who are you to me?
Okay. See, I'm Sola's girlfriend.
Hey,
Yes, that's who I am.
That's what I was getting at. She acting like she don't
I said
know.
I'm your queen.
You know what I'm saying? I just want to,
That's
I just
how
want to
it
make it
started.
plain. Let's make it plain.
Okay, we got it.
Say it loud
Kahlea
for the people in the
Kabir.
back.
That's who I am.
Let's get
I'm
it.
in the mix.
Yeah,
Behind the scenes, not in front of the scenes.
yeah.
That's what I prefer.
You helped me. We're going to be talking about chapter 8, and obviously people are going to see your face again, but you helped make chapter 8.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how many times you've read this book, even just by editing it and stuff, but how many? Like 2?
I think it's kind of crazy
Or 3?
because when we first met, I don't know how you can.
Whatever, yeah. When we first started consistently acknowledging each other.
Yes, that's what we already knew each other. You had the book on the yellow sheets. So
Oh,
that's
yeah,
actually
on
the
the
first
notepad.
time, yeah, that I
Yeah.
read it.
Wow.
Probably not a lot of people would know that, or that you were actually legitimately writing a book
On a notepad with a
like
pen
from scratch.
from the Scrizzy.
Yeah, so that was probably the first time I read it, and I was like, "Oh,
I always forget that you were actually
man
there
is
for that
smart.
part of the process.
this man has something to say." So yeah, that was probably the first time, but I have read it on different occasions.
You've read it at least twice since then, too, because you edited it
Yeah,
and you read it
and then I probably have read it again more recently.
and you notated it.
I did. I have the actual version with my notes still.
And by this book, because I always do this, by this book, we're talking about my first book, The Deciding Factor, which is an ebook available electronically for those people who don't know, because I keep failing to mention it, but that's what we're actually talking about. Chapter 8 of the book.
What is chapter 8 about? Are you going to tell them?
Yeah, I am. I was just about to say it's actually called Reality Check, which is a very peculiar chapter for you to have chosen, which I didn't realize until now because I hadn't looked back at it until I showed up here today. But that's a super interesting chapter of the book for you to choose. I obviously have so many different angles to look at this, from, but I don't know. I still think I still think that, first of all, tribalhaven.me, you can go buy the book if you don't have it already. It's on Amazon. If you get it directly from me and cut the middleman, it's a little bit cheaper for you all, more affordable, even though it's already very affordable. So tribalhaven.me, that's where everything else is at as well. So go peep me out. But anyway, I just think it's super peculiar that you chose this because as I was looking over it, even the stuff that like the questions I have for you, I don't really know the answers to this stuff, which is crazy. Because our relationship is so deep. There's not too many things anyone could ever ask me about you and I couldn't come up with an answer. I don't have the answers to some of this stuff, which is fascinating.
I'm curious about what you're going to ask.
The one thing that I'm curious about is I also think it's interesting you chose this because I didn't want to put you under a lot of pressure, but I don't know that you have thought about answers to these either. So we gonna see.
We're going to be freestyling, okay?
Yeah, I mean, I'm freestyling when I'm in here anyway. I literally just took these bullets down right before we started. So
Okay,
that's how we do it.
I'm ready.
Obviously, I want you to be able to describe to people what you do professionally, because while that is not your identity, I think that you are a woman of very niched, relevant, and sharpened skills. And I think the majority of people who know you don't understand that. I think even people who know what you do don't really understand like what you do.
Facts.
So first, let's start with like, what all do you do professionally?
Okay. I guess I'm an educator by trade. Like I'm actually in higher education. But I currently run a consulting business called Forever Riot. And we do diversity, equity, and inclusion work. I call myself a racial equity consultant. So yeah, that's really what I do.
When you say you're in higher ed,
Yeah.
what does that mean?
So I guess I was formerly like what people would consider like a student affairs practitioner. So I was a part of the people who did like scholarship advising. I've built like scholarship programs, like things of that nature. You're making me think about this, and I haven't had to think about
That was
it
what I see.
in a while. But I'm a writer, so like I'm really interested in research and writing. And that is why I continue in education. So everything that I do right now, even as a consultant, is like research based. And I enjoy it, as you know, because I just create my own realities.
And
So,
also, when you say you're in higher ed, let me throw you this alley-oop real quick. That's your degree is based in higher
higher
ed.
education, yeah.
That's part of what I was getting at too, because I'm
Yeah.
leading it somewhere a little bit.
Yeah.
So you
But I don't really use that degree.
Not yet, because you're about to
Yeah.
do
More school.
People don't know you, so you got to tell
let
them.
me talk to y'all like y'all are strangers. So yeah, I'm actually going to get my Ph.D. this fall.
Boom! We got a bomb. Let's see if we can grab a bomb. Watch your ears.
I like that.
Yeah. See, that's what I be hearing when I'm getting all scared, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, so I'm doing that in higher education. I focus on the experiences of Black girls and women in education from like a sociology perspective. But I don't know. My reality check, see what I did there? It's kind of changed. My reality has shifted.
But we're gonna get there
a lot. So means to a different end, I would say.
And we both experienced that in different ways. But part of me wanting to say that was even to say like, what an unusual, and this is how I use these live examples to make sure that people continue to span these principles and these thought processes across the full horizon, because you and I have not only experienced a lot of the same things, we walk out a lot of the same principles, like we are together and we're unified, but you are someone who is going into your Ph.D. program, and I am someone who has never graduated a school, period, of any kind other than a vocational school that I chose to go through that my mentor offered. And I have my certifications, obviously extreme execution certified, coach and consultant, blah, blah, blah. But just eliminating people's excuses, because me having you here, some people might watch and listen to me and think, yeah, but how does that apply to what I do?
Facts.
Which we're finna talk about. So that eliminates not only excuses, but people got to stop separating themselves and making themselves the exception to these rules that work in their favor.
I agree.
So I just wanted to make sure we pointed that out, even though you were never going to tell people you were in school
I don't
or
like
anything.
people in my business.
Man.
I don't like people in my business. But I do
about
think, wait. I do think also like people have to understand their path, right? And I think we get caught on that. And I see that with a lot of people in education. Like we get put on these conveyor belts. So everybody goes to do this, and then they go to do this, and then they go to do this, and this is the next thing. They don't have a lot of passion or purpose in that.
They don't have a lot of room that, like, there's not a lot of thought-provoking conversations to spark that.
Exactly. So then when
it's not that environment
that cultivates that,
Yeah,
to be completely honest. So when you
people
meet
have to do that
two
themselves.
people
It's
like
hard.
us, they think that we actually don't match because our paths are very different. But it's actually because of our relationship that I feel like I'm able to imagine beyond and really get into spaces with people who are on the grounds, who are doing work. Because sometimes education feels like la la land.
It's a cloud.
It's not reality. And it's tough for people to realize that, but it's not.
It's a place for preparation, but the key is for people to understand in themselves, what am I preparing for, so that I can take the initiative to, while I'm here, become prepared for that. And that these certain types of conversations are not so common in the majority of the institutions that I have dealt with and that I've seen other people deal with on a large scale. And it's not just us saying that, like, it really be the facts. So, but that's important for you to say. And I also think it's important for me to say, just real quick before I really get started in here, because I'm about to start asking you about Forever Riot, just so you know. But it's also important for me to say that in school, not in school, the main thing is for you to, number one, know what you want to do, and know, like, create a little checklist for yourself. Don't got to be nothing too serious, but just know what it's actually going to take for you on your path to get to that place where you want to be and what you want to do. So, for example, I don't tell people to leave school or go to school based around, say, what I did or what I've seen another person do. I just look at their life, what their goals are, the type of person they are. For some people, it makes perfect sense. What doesn't make sense is, no matter what you choose, if you don't take the initiative to prepare yourself for where you're going. So I just wanted to...
And know who you are. I think that has to be the biggest thing. Some of us only know ourselves by way of what we do, right? If I wasn't in education, if I didn't have a business, if I didn't do these things, what would I still be me? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's like, can you know yourself in these arenas?
Who's the person? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what my Man in the Mirror thing at the B conference was about. Are you the person? Like, who is the person in the mirror? Blah, blah, blah. Because, you know, all the kids want to do different stuff. Some want to be athletes. One wanted to be a dentist. Somebody wanted to do, I forgot. But the relation to it all was like, are you that person? You know, because wasn't nobody else at the conference talking to him like that. And that's the point that you were making. Interesting. So you mentioned what you do professionally. You brought up Forever Riot. You are a writer of sorts, and you are many other things as well, because you have edited not just my book, but you've edited all kinds of stuff. You contributed to what I believe to be textbooks.
Yeah, a couple of books.
You've helped authors who are very widely respected complete and edit their books.
Yes.
Yeah, and also you're an what sort of consultant did you say? Because you're an advocate in that.
I guess I'm space. A diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant.
An advocate. Which I've watched, and I say all that to say, why Forever Riot? What is that? What does the name Forever Riot have to do with any of that stuff?
You know, people always ask me this. I just be like,
did you write it down? Do
you not get the pun? But so I originally started this with two colleagues of mine. I kind of had been waiting to find the proper space or folks, I guess, to collaborate with. And I always like this quote, and it's called "Writing as Writing, Writing as Rioting, and Writing as Writing," as in like making something right. And on the best of days, all three. So it's Forever Riot, WRIOT. So it's a play on all of those different combinations, as in when you are doing these things, you are evoking change, be it to make something right or to disrupt something. And originally it started as an editing company. So I wasn't actually doing consulting. I was editing. A mentor of mine asked my two other partners, Patrice and Ozzy, to edit his book. And then some other people started asking us to edit. And it kind of just like was like, oh, I can make money editing. I'm a trained copy editor, which fun fact, I used to do that. I used to work in the marketing space as a copywriter and editor. So I was like, I might as well use these skills to make money. But I realized that people actually don't know what copy editing is at all. Yes. It's something that is...
I didn't know what copy editing was until I knew that I did it, but I didn't even know what it was. Like, I never named it. A lot of people have no clue what that even means.
No idea. So a lot of people, and this is why I kind of got out of the editing space, think that copy editing is actually ghostwriting. So
Make sure it's like no, just make sure it's pointed at your mouth because it
thank
sounds
you.
like you're going in and out. And if you need to move it, you can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I actually dealt with people saying I wasn't doing what they paid me to do, but they thought that I was actually doing something completely different.
They didn't know what they hired you to do.
Yes. So I realized, people think that I'm actually.
I remember that.
Yes.
Now that you mention it, I remember a specific experience. Actually, I'm not going to name, but yes.
Yes. Someone who was actually finishing a Ph.D. program thought that I was going to help her write parts of her dissertation. And if you know anything about what that means, like, I'm not a ghostwriter.
That's completely different.
I am not actually going to be able to verify your data.
Right.
I am not a statistician. I edit. So I would say that that's kind of what shifted the lens. I kind of took a pause. The pandemic is what got me into the DEI space, as you know.
I'm sure that'll come up again in our conversation.
Yeah, so it was just a shift. I've been willing to like go with the flow of how things have been evolving.
So, Forever Riot, you kind of explained the rioting, because that's how it spells for everybody. It's forever and it's riot, but riot has that W because it's like a play on words with right as well. And writing as a form of rioting. Did you say that just now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just double checking because that's, this is one of those important points, and especially I wanted to spell it out like that so that people can find you as well on social media or whatever the case may be. A lot of people actually need these services. A lot of people in the place that we are need these services, but they don't understand that they need help. I don't know what it is about where we are right now. People just don't think that they need help with anything. But anyway, so I just wanted to make sure I went back and pointed that out. I am going to move a little bit away from that so we can go back and kind of reverse engineer the way that you ended up here and your mindset about it all. And like I said, some of these questions I don't actually have the answers to. Okay. And there's not really a method to the madness when it comes to the order I ask them in. And you've seen the way I do this. Like, I might ask something and then decide to jump somewhere else because you'll segue.
Yes.
But I kind of, and as we get into the whole reality check thing, so people understand as they're following me that we're getting to that point there. Just keep following us here. But I'm going to start looping in the generations of your family. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about things that were passed down and things that were not, that you had to come up with. Okay. So, and I want to start with the question, when you look at the path that you're currently taking, it's an unusual one. It's not the usual. Yeah. You are someone who has pursued higher ed, completed your master's, on your way to your Ph.D., and is an entrepreneur. Yes. Who already owns your own company, which is not only bringing money to you, it's brought money to me as well. You make a good amount of money doing that on your own. Yes. This begs the question about things you're doing right now that you didn't necessarily see done in your household. Yes. What are those things? Are there any? Because I know some of the background of some of the people, but even on both sides of your family, you got one who is like this part of you and one who is like that part of you as far as career paths are concerned. And it's kind of like a cocktail. You're like this cocktail. Yeah. And we all kind of turn out that way, but you are a very interesting dichotomy of this. You're you're like a verbatim split. I would agree. So this is kind of a tough question. This is a funny question. It's only funny because I wasn't expecting you to ask. I told you, so I'm looking like, Are there things that you're currently doing, like, and I mean just in life, it don't even got to be professionally, but how much of what you're doing now was not seen in your household? Most, to be honest. So I would say you saying that I'm half and half is really interesting. And by the way, I'm so sorry. We've never had this conversation before. It's crazy. And that's why I say this is like she chose the chapter. Yes, I did. Wild. Okay. But anyway. I would say my mom's side is very education heavy. Mm-hmm. Actually, when we were at Appliance Factory, remember that guy was talking about he was the only person in his family that wasn't an educator. Yeah. And it made me think about like, actually on my mom's side, a lot of
aunts, uncles are in education, whether it's like K through 12. And my mom is an educator, and my mom actually does diversity, equity, and inclusion work. She's a professor. So I would say
she got her PhD.
She actually got her PhD in education, higher ed specifically. Her path, if you look at it from a surface level, looks exactly the same as what I am doing. But if you dig deeper, you will see that we actually have some very significant differences. And this is funny because, I was talking to my brother yesterday. My brother is actually a business owner.
And I didn't even bring that up.
No, you didn't. But it made me think about it because me and my brother, we have the same dad, not the same mom. So my brother doesn't have any education, like formal education, so on and so forth, but actually runs a very lucrative business right now.
Super intelligent.
Very wise. He's 2 years younger than me, so he's about to be 25.
Beyond his years.
And it's fascinating because I was talking to him yesterday for a long time. Shout out to you, not saying your name, but shout out to him though, because it's like that push, right? It's like, oh, this man is making money, doing it the right way, doing the things, taking care of his family, but he had to etch out a path for himself that wasn't a path that we saw, right? And that's a conversation that we always say. If your parents aren't entrepreneurs or your parents aren't doing these things, where do you glean from? You can find mentors online, you can whatever. You, of all people, know for me, I don't know shit about business. Nothing. Taxes, what? Everything that I do for my business is very much
from a logistical standpoint, that's very true.
Trial and error. But like even him, I say that he planted a lot of seeds of entrepreneurship in me when we first met, because I was I'm a very pragmatic type of person. So I'm like, everything has to be like this. It's going to go like this and da, 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 da. I had my reality check when I finished my master's in the middle of a pandemic. And because I had already worked in education, no jobs wanted to hire me because they could hire someone with the same degree and pay them $20,000 less.
You finished your master's in the middle of a pandemic.
Yes. And I could not get a job. I actually made it to, I'm going to say like 10 final rounds. And everybody was hitting me back, sending me these, oh my gosh, freaking long 2-page emails about you're this and this and this. And
I remember
that.
talking you through this.
And I was mad. Thing. I was very upset because I was like, oh, this is crazy. I did the things, right? You do the things that they tell you to do. You go, you get the degree, you graduate. Oh, it's a pandemic. What does that mean?
Everything changed.
The whole landscape. And that was my reality check because I was like, so what can I do? I can pivot and I can use these skills in a way because there was a gap. So we had Black Lives Matter happening, the pandemic, people of color are dying at the highest rates. Black Lives Matter is at this point global. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, we're seeing it. And all of these companies are like, oh shit, we need diversity statements. We need diversity people, blah, blah, blah. And that was my pivot. So I've already gone all the way around from what you asked me. But I would say that changed everything for me because I didn't have a choice. Oh, I guess I did have a choice, right? I could have kept trying.
You
limited. I did. I
this
did
is
try
one of
for
the
a
tactics
while.
that I teach people. I'm not going to go into it because there are people who pay for this teaching, but you eliminated options for yourself and narrowed it down. That's what you did. So you convinced yourself that you didn't have a choice other than to make the right choice. That's what happened there. So just want to point that out.
Yeah. And so I think that that's something that I haven't seen people in my family do. Right? I haven't seen that.
That answers the question.
Yeah, so I had to bring it back.
That is.
I kind of forgot.
No, you did. I would have looped it back. You know how I do.
No, but that's something that I had never seen.
Yes.
Is like right people, the true option would have been, in some of the ways that I have been taught, is just take a job and take the pay cut because it's a pandemic. You should just get paid less than what I was being paid with just a bachelor's degree because of the times. And I was just not willing to do that.
Which would have still even been like people who chose to do that to make ends meet. There ain't nothing wrong with them either, because it's kind of like,
no, not at all.
You're doing the best that you know how to do with what you're given. So it's just that there is a certain there are certain, and I keep posting about this, like I don't know why it's on my mind so heavy, but there are certain rewards that are reserved for certain levels of execution. And you wanted the rewards that were at a different level of execution, so you changed your level of execution. You didn't settle. And some people don't necessarily care for that reward in the time, so they execute at the level they're at and they get the rewards for the level they're at. But I just want to make sure I say that too, because with the pandemic and all that, and you know how like some people get so caught up in their accomplishments and what did I actually do? You survived, bruh. Like you lived through it. So you've actually done enough. But it's just that you got to recognize certain rewards are reserved for certain levels of execution, and there ain't no way around it. And so you had a choice to make.
Yeah. And I just got tired of interviews, y'all. People were interviewing for 3 hours. Education interviews are 3 hours. So you get
and then
to
you
the
got
point,
multiple rounds.
Yeah.
So it's like
and
3
then
hours
I
a
didn't
pop.
even get the job. Are y'all tweaking?
Yes,
you
they were
owe me a
tweakers.
check. What the heck? Pay me for my time.
Yeah. And something you said. Oh, this is another important thing to look at as well. Your reality check in that moment was you. It's like you got a chance to check out my reality. Because I'm so used to that I was able to talk you through it. I'm like, I'm so used to applying for 100 jobs and getting hit back about 3. And then maybe not getting one of the 3, but maybe getting another interview for 1, and you got to bring your A game.
I wasn't
to
bringing
that
my
one.
A game at one point.
And it's just that was a reality that you were not used to having to check because everything changed.
Yes, exactly.
So what the pandemic did for me was bring, and this is just personally, it brought everyone to a level that I was already at.
Yeah.
So I have been booming like crazy. And I'm like, this is where I live. This is my playing field now. But that's a point where you were able to glean something for me as well. Because I'm like, oh, okay, so this is how you boom, boom, boom. This is the mindset you got to have, boom, boom, boom. This is, you cast your net this way on purpose. You only need 1. You don't need all of them to call you back because you don't want 20 jobs. You don't want 20. You really just need 1. So if 1 hits you back and then you get 1, that was the goal. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, boom, this is why you cast a whole wide net. You're not going to catch every fish in the lake. You just need the fish enough for dinner or whatever the case may be, analogy. But boom. So that's just a point of relation, like to loop it back to a reality check is I just thought that was interesting. The reality that you got to check was one that I was able to support you in because that's the water that I was already swimming in.
Yeah. I think also like it was a weird time for me because I was seeing a lot of my colleagues get into like spaces and places that I felt like I deserved to be in. And I had to kind of even like tunnel vision in a different way that I haven't had to in a long time to be like, okay, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Like I'm on a different path. So if I'm truly on a different path, then I have to really commit. And I think that that's challenging when you are shifting realities. It's like, okay, I'm making a decision, like you said, to go this way. But if I'm going to go this way, I have to do it. And that's why at one point I stopped applying for jobs because I was like, okay, I'm running a business now. Like I don't really need a job at this point. If I'm really casting my net in the ways and how it ended up playing out it was fine.
It's an interesting reality even that I'm dealing with now is like, and this is just another point of relation where it's like, since we're moving and all this stuff, like I've been trying to do the thing that most people would tell me to do. But the things that are going right are all the stuff that is just like my entrepreneurial stuff. Is everything that's lining up. And the things where I'm like, I'm down to come work for you as long as not only do I believe in the work that's being done, but it's relevant to my career. And like I'm not getting jobs. But then on the other end, all this other stuff is booming. Like I'm getting clients. I'm getting coaching. I'm being trained by the best in the world. I'm linking up with the podcast place and all this and that. And I'm just like, I suppose, but that's similar to what you were going through. Is like every door was shutting, but then on the other end, you got this door that opens. That's like, it seems like it made perfect sense. And you're making
alignment. It's alignment, right? Like if you're really in your divine alignment or where you're supposed to be, things that wouldn't make sense to the common eye start to make sense. And like, I think what gets us off track sometimes, and even stuff that we struggle with each other, is like, you hope that people understand why you're making the decisions that you're making.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, I just posted about that. So funny.
They may not understand until it's already popping, right? Like, people did not know people still, like you said, people have no idea what I do. People in my family are like, okay, girl, like, and my mom tells them like, oh yeah, like, she runs a business, she does this, and this. People don't understand.
They don't even understand the language.
They don't understand, like, scratching the surface of what it is that I do, but I don't care because it pays my bills.
And it's really unusual too, because you run a business and you're in school, like at a high level, like you're pursuing a Ph.D. program.
And my partner is as well. So the person that I work with,
both of them,
is going into her third year of her Ph.D. Very unconventional paths for students to be working, right? We work on campus, so we work at schools, but
because that pays for school.
Yes, that pays for school, but understand that in order for us to leverage ourselves, right, beyond the academy, and I just have to say that, like, people who are in education think that the academy is the end all be all. It's really not, unfortunately. And like, for us to be able to position ourselves and make more money than, they pay student workers like $20,000 a year.
It's just not the most favorable setup. Like, it's set up for you to get your education, but it's not set up for the other things that people are expecting. It's not set up for you
to survive. You cannot pay your bills.
Right, and that ain't what they set it up for. That ain't what it's for. People just, they believe that that's what it's for some reason.
Yeah,
it's not. That's not what it was. That's not what it's for.
So having that has been nice. I think it'll be interesting to see how it changes, because I'll be in school again. But it's something that I'm just learning my path.
Mm-hmm. And with all that being said, because that very thoroughly answers the question, another question is, I'm curious about what things that you did see done in your household that you kind of are taking the torch to a new level.
I think that my mother is a risk taker. I would say my mom has a very unconventional path. She was a teen mom, graduated with her bachelor's degree like when I was born, her master's when I was like 5, and then went on to like do Ph.D. when I was in high school, right? She was a single mother.
Getting a master's with a 4-year-old.
Finishing your bachelor's with a baby, right? Like, very unconventional things, but she was always willing to take the risk. And even now she's building her own like consulting, which you kind of know about, to create a safety net for herself outside of education. So I think it's really interesting to see that happening. Whereas for me, I've already like disassociated from needing the institution. So I think that's the next level of that, right? Because she's really in it. She's in the mix. But I think seeing people take risk in ways and be willing to do things that people weren't willing to do. My mom's really like you in the regard that she's like, I don't take excuses from people. Like, I had a kid when I was 19. Like, I straight up had a kid when I was 19, and I was able to do these things. Of course, she had a support system, but she's like, I don't really take excuses. So if you want to make something happen, make it happen.
You'll figure it out.
Period.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I'm thinking of it now, like, you and my pops are similar, and then me and you are similar in regard to our parents, because my pops he's about as in the mix of education.
I realized that very recently.
Yeah, he's about as in the mix as a human being can be, but he also is. I come from a family that you would call woke in today's culture, and my pops is very much so woke, but it's the path that he chose in order to create a safety net for his family. So he got so deep in the mix that there's certain levels of conditioning. You know what I'm saying? Like, how long you've been in the military, then you get out of the military, you're not just gonna start folding your clothes different or waking up at a time later than 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. just because you're no longer in the military. Like, you're still gonna keep your regimen. And there's certain levels of conditioning that he's undergone. So in relation, like you and I, for example, I'm taking things that my father already started doing to a place that he wasn't able to take them at a certain time. Because I'm exactly half his age right now. So the age I am right now, he was when I was born. And I'm the second kid because I have an older sister, which people will have seen or already saw, or whatever the case may be. I don't know. So there are certain things like the real estate stuff, and he like has been in the consulting space. He's done a lot of training and coaching when it comes to students. He's an educator of sorts as well. In many ways, he's taught class. He's done all that stuff. But I'm taking that and I'm taking it to a place that he literally, some of this stuff he never thought to do. Even with the real estate, I'm going commercial. I don't want to own like houses like that. Like I want my houses, but I don't want to own houses. I'm not into it. But he owns hella houses and condos.
Yeah.
And now he's like, well, I think I want to go commercial. That I kind of did that because I want to do things differently and take it to another level. And when it comes to education, coaching and consulting and training and all that, I do it on an entrepreneurial level. And I take education extremely seriously. I found a way to do it without the institution after a certain point because it's not where it didn't match my trajectory, the trajectory that he chose that helped my family. Mm-hmm. So in reference to you, you are taking this thing that your mother started to an entirely new level it's a level that you get to stand on her shoulders and then climb.
I was literally about to say that because I also think like a lot of this is like epigenetics. And I know like...
Please explain that. It's very rare that a person will use a word and I literally have no clue.
It's basically like the...
I don't think I've ever heard epigenetics.
Yeah. It's basically like the parts of your lineage, the characteristics that are passed down.
We've talked deeply about this. I just don't use the word. And you brought this up to me.
Yeah. So like for
prime example, Ph.D. right here.
I got really into like ancestry stuff. Not like I'm gonna give them my DNA because I don't believe in that. Like during the pandemic, I was doing all kind of stuff with my free time. But
we all were straight up.
I was really learning a lot about like my grandparents and my great grandparents and like my grandma. She went to the University of Chicago, but she was a Black Panther and got we were talking about this the other day. She got kicked out for starting a riot, right? So like me being as subversive as I am and very disruptive in a lot of spaces, it's not like just because I have been socialized to be like this. Like some of this is really passed down and some of it are the things, and you know, I believe in this, like the things that our ancestors did not reconcile or did, like we come back and we finish for them sometimes. And I feel like even the stuff you're saying
it's
with
cyclical
your dad,
and these things will keep coming up until one person is the disruption.
Exactly.
Whatever that disruption looks like.
I feel like that has a lot to do with like how we are, who we are, and what we end up really being passionate about is like, it's not because of me, right?
Not all.
It's not all because of me, but I'm definitely different parts of different people in my family, and that's good and bad, right? Like we talk about where we get our temperaments and where we get these certain things, like they come from different places. So
come from different places. Sidebar. That has to deal with the torch, though, that you were passed, that you're taking to the next level. That's when people talk about being a curse breaker. That's very common in like the Christian community, and I think I think right before the pandemic, it became kind of popular for people to talk about being curse breakers or whatever, like disruptions and all that. But it's important for people to realize, like, when we're talking about these things, it's two sides to this coin, and it's the same coin. So I got a teaching about this on exposure that I'm not going to talk about right now because it's a different video. Y'all got a reference. It's about exposure. It's about the two sides to exposure. Nonetheless, when we start talking about you being passed down, certain parts of your path were etched out, but as you start to walk down it and you get to look around from a different perspective, because during those times when you're walking down the part that was etched out, you don't have to worry about pulling your machete, chopping out the jungle and looking out for jaguars. That part of it is done, so you get to look with fresh eyes because you're not watching out for branches and all that, trying to take care. Like you don't have a child right now, so some things that you don't have to divert your attention to, so you get to look up with clear vision. So during that time, and I encourage people to actually do this, you have been able to say, because this was already done, I have more attention to be able to pay to what I want to do with this thing.
Exactly.
Real. Yeah.
And I get to navigate it a little bit differently, right?
That's the opportunity that was created for us. You get to navigate it differently, even with your grandma. Like, and we share some history in that regard too that I won't get deep into for obvious reasons. But that sort of that zeal and that attitude and that spirit fell on you for real. And you get to look at something like that and say, yeah, That's one thing that we did before. What is the next thing that can be done? That's different than that, but the essence can still be captured in Forever Riot.
And like, what are the benefits and the consequences, right? Because I think that even with some of this stuff,
We about to talk about that.
you don't know the cost. And I always say that to people. Being disruptive, being subversive, being all of these things comes with cost and implications.
We talked about that.
Yes,
I remember.
I've learned that the hard way.
You used to be getting kicked out of class and all kinds of stuff.
Yes,
and I used to
yes,
tell you
yes.
before, like when you get these urges, consider the price that you pay
Yes.
before you accept that you paying the cost. Before you take the bill,
But
consider.
some things are worth it, right? Like if you look back at some of the things that we both have, like, and I have the shirt on, which is funny. We both have like Black Panther connections in that way. Like some of the things that they went through and some of the things that they did had very high cost.
ultimate prices.
And in retrospect, you always have to ask yourself, I wonder if they thought it was worth it, right? Some of them are not here with us anymore. So we have to ask those questions and like weigh it out in everything
Which
that we
is
do.
subjective.
Exactly.
Which is subjective.
It is. And it's subjective even in the moment.
Yep. And that's the reason why I place emphasis on being able to make an informed decision. Because whether or not a thing was worth it, sometimes just because something happened to you, even if you would have wanted it to happen, the manner in which it happened makes you feel like it wasn't worth it, or it should have been different, or if you had just been able to prepare. So I think people just need to consider the cost ahead of time. So first of all, take these leaps of faith like you're doing, being an entrepreneur, figuring it out on the fly, pandemic, getting past different torches and taking them to the next level. You're having to figure a lot of stuff out for the first time. Take the leap. But on the other end, try to make the most informed leap that you possibly can.
Yeah,
All right. If you're going to
100%.
walk the plank, at least look down to see if there's sharks. You might not see them, but just check. Just check, because you might still jump. I'm the dude who I see sharks and I go, I'm a shark. Let's get it. But if I don't see sharks and I jump down there and I hit one and I'm just like, well, I just wish I knew it was there. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe you're not a shark and you like, let me just jump somewhere else. You know, so I don't get, you know what I'm saying, chewed out in this water that's not for me. Or maybe you don't know it's water down there and you jump and you can't even swim in this type of deep water. People who go after certain entrepreneurial endeavors who didn't prep their minds, didn't check to see if this was the business they should be in. People who jump into school and they do it the wrong way and they accrue debt and then they end up going into something they didn't want to do in the first place, but they didn't understand, you know, whatever. Informed leaps of faith. You're not going to know everything, but just take a second look so that you understand at least, even if you choose that it's still worth it. Because I'm that dude. I'm obsessed with sacrifice. I want to make it and I want the rewards for making it.
Yeah, he is
but
obsessed.
I am obsessed with it and I always want to pay the cost so I can really be confident in being the boss. But I'm also obsessed with the level of educated decisions that I'm able to make.
Yeah.
Informed decisions so I can be decisive.
I'm working on that part.
We in that together. So, you know, also with that being said, as we talk about these reality checks, there's some points that I make in this chapter as I talk about, first of all, as I talk about the reality of where you currently are versus where you want to be, seriously reflecting on the distance that you'll have to travel, like we just talked about. I talk about the reality, mainly what what I outline in this chapter for people is the reality that most people have these illustrious goals that they talk about that they will never meet. And it's not that they can't, it's that they won't. A lot, like a whopping majority of people are more talk, you know, than they are, they're just more bark than they are bite. And that's what sets apart, you know, whatever smaller percentage of people who will say like, I'm going to write a book. And you're like, oh yeah, I might write one too. But then I come out with a book. You know, and it's like, oh,
me.
wow.
He's talking about me, y'all. I'm like, I'm going to write a book.
Well,
5 years later.
No, whatever.
Titles.
Anyway,
title pages.
I ain't. Anyway, but yeah, that's the point. That's like something that I really outlined in this chapter is like that it's somewhat of a daunting reality, but it's something we got to face because it can drive us to say, okay, I need to take this more seriously so that I don't slip into that population of people who don't get it done.
Yeah.
And by it, I don't mean what other people want you to get done, what society says is important. I mean what do you need to get out of life so that you can enjoy your life? And if you're on your deathbed and you look up and say, I never did that, will you be unhappy? Those are the it's that I'm talking about getting done. And a lot of people don't face the reality that it's super possible that this doesn't happen. So let me make it more possible. Let me make it more practical. The question here is, you are a person who I've seen overcome the intimidation of getting things wrong for sake of just doing something and seeing if it'll work or if you'll get it wrong or like whatever, just kind of figuring out what will work. I want to know, first of all, how do you overcome that intimidation of like getting it wrong just for sake of doing something and making some sort of movement? And it's a two-part question, and if you need me to remind you second half, I will. What initially gave you the ability to realize that a lot of people actually don't accomplish some of the things that you set out to accomplish, and so you do get the logistics right, and you pay extra attention to some of this stuff like taxes?
I would say probably the second half of the question would be easier for me to respond to. I'm definitely like a lift as you climb kind of person. In that, like, I actually want to put other people of color, Black people on. And so these errors that I'm willing to go through is because I'm willing to teach other people the things that I've already messed up on. So like, you already know, even with you and your stuff, I'm like, hey, make sure you do this because I didn't do this when I started. And if I would have done this, or I would have connected this account, things would have been smoother for me. And I think that that's why I'm willing to do it, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like like I said earlier, I don't have anyone that I can just like tap into to ask these questions. So I'm just doing it. I'm willing to be the guinea pig if it means that like people in my community can also like benefit from the things that I'm trying to build. And also monetarily benefit, right? Because, like we work together. We're literally colleagues and we work together. Because I'm like, if I can't do something, I will find someone who is in my community to do it. Period.
And that's in reference to like some of the branding, marketing, and
like
graphic design and like imagery based things like that. It's not her strong suit, but it's my strong suit. So she has hired me as the consultant for Forever Riot. So we work together on certain projects, and then you just contract me in to do the stuff that you're literally not good at, that I'm good at, and then you do all the stuff that I don't even understand what I'm looking at.
And even like with that, as I'm trying to expand, and I don't know what that'll look like because I'm going back to school, it's like I have a list of people that are like really want to get into this work, and I'm network. Like, I'll put you on, right? Even shout out to Casey with Sembramos, like someone hired me to be her consultant, right? Because we have this synergy in this network. Another woman of color was like, hey, you're dope. Let me pay you double what another company I was working for was paying me. So she stole me, honestly. Never work for them again.
And that's how you steal. Add more value.
Yeah, and she stole me, actually, ironically, from DU with some work that they were doing. And she was like, what's up? So that's why I'm willing to go through some of those things. I just say, repeat this first part of the question.
You kind of are, you are answering both simultaneously, actually. And the first part of the question was, how do you overcome the intimidation of getting things wrong? And the reason that you're willing to kind of bear that cross is because of what it will do for your community if you go first and figure it out.
Yeah, I think once I got over the fact that I literally knew nothing about business.
It's so funny. Let me stop right here because you actually officially started your business before me, and I'm the one that had all like the business knowledge. But you
and I actually started the business like a long time ago. So I didn't actually
you LLC'd and like all that stuff.
Yeah, I think in like 2019.
A long time ago, basically.
But I didn't actually start using it as a fully functioning business until 2020. So
I didn't even start until 20. Like I was doing I don't even want to put air quotes. I was literally doing the work. Yeah. But I didn't start my business until 2020. Like, I didn't even start it. I didn't even LLC. I didn't buy the name. I didn't do any of that until 2020. And you had already done it the year before me. That's fascinating. So when you were referencing things like when you were telling me like the certain stuff that I didn't understand and if I linked the accounts and blah, 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 it's because I had asked her about how she manages taking payments and taxes. And I asked her, even though I had like not all the other, but some of the other knowledge about building a business, if you never done it before, you don't really know how to handle the taxes and what's best. But she had gone before me. She was just willing to jump in, even with less knowledge than someone who hadn't even done it yet. She still was willing to because of what it would do for her community. She didn't only check her reality, she checked the reality of the space she was in. She checked the reality of those around her and was like, if somebody got to go first, fine.
Yeah. And I'll say, like, honestly, what is it? You always tell me, the chicken before the egg or whatever.
Oh yeah, what came first? Egg
Yeah,
or chicken,
like,
blah blah blah. Some things are just
like, I started making money and I was like, oh
I
damn.
got a funny fact. I'm gonna say after you continue.
Damn, I actually need to like set up a business account. Like, I actually need to, like, I'm not getting taxes taken out. None of this is formalized, so it was like I don't know that I had a choice but to rise to the occasion.
I'm typing this down because I want to make sure I say this to the people to highlight something. You didn't even mean to highlight this, but you did. You highlighted it, but you didn't explain it. I'm the explainer. So in our relationship, I'm the one that talks too much because I like to explain everything. But she's the one initiating a lot of our conversations. I will say that. So what you did was, the principle that you're outlining is go with what you have. Mm-hmm. So what came first, chicken or the egg? And I'm going to explain why that's funny in a minute. But what came first, chicken or the egg? She started her business first and then figured out the logistics. Some people will say like, oh, that's a terrible way to do it, blah, blah, blah. It's a higher risk when you do it that way. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you just have to start. And from where you are, then you look around and you create your checklist of things you need to do to make it work. It depends on the person and the time that you're in. She had a necessity to just start. She needed to just start, number one, because she wasn't going to start if she didn't do it at the time she started. It wasn't going to happen. Mm-hmm. And number two, the need is now. The need is not going to wait. People are going without certain services because some of you are not willing to just start where you are and figure it out as you go. For example, I started my business and spent all the money and had all this stuff done before I understood taxes.
What the heck?
I literally have clients. I started taking clients and all that stuff, and I didn't even understand, like, what's the best way to take payments where it won't bite me in the butt later. Like, I don't even know. But I had people paying me. I had to start because you can only ask so many questions before you get analysis paralysis, and then everyone loses. No one's benefiting from your gift when you remain frozen. And sometimes you're not frozen because you're just lazy or you're not acting. And I talk about this a lot, like you're not acting on it or something. Sometimes you're frozen because you want to get it right so bad. But literally go with what you have, like the book and all the other things, or like you with the business and so many other things. Go with what you have and build your wings on the fall.
Yeah, that's literally what I was going to say. Because I was just faking it, honestly. I was still like running a business and I didn't have the back end stuff ready. But I was like, well, you can figure that out, like you said, on the fly.
And you knew that. Mm-hmm. And you knew that. That comes with checking your reality. You didn't run from it. You didn't like fake the funk for real. Like you didn't really, in literal terms, you weren't faking it. You were just taking a different order than, say, some old white dude would have told you to take, who probably doesn't own no company. You know what I'm saying? Some CFO somewhere who doesn't own it either would have told you to take a different route and do all this and that, and you should have 20,000 before you start, just in case, and take a business loan or blah blah blah. What you did was you leaped first, and then you built the wings because you understood the cost and decided it was worth hitting the branches on the way down.
Yes, and I would say that I understand.
Pow. You see that?
All of this right now. I didn't understand any of it. It was just happening. So I think that that's the other thing. Like, hindsight is 20/20. You can definitely understand some of these things a little bit more.
It's super interesting, and I just think this is one of, first of all, 8's my favorite number for a lot of reasons. So I wrote this chapter as number 8. I didn't write the chapter as number 8. I wrote the chapter, then made it number 8 for a very specific reason. I could literally talk about this for the rest of my life, but I gotta end this podcast. There's never, everything I do, almost, because I am obsessed with sacrifice and paying costs and what it does it take to do this and understanding it ain't gonna be easy, you know what I'm saying, and blah blah blah. But I'm literally so obsessed with it because of the way that our lives have been. So I gotta land this plane, or I'm gonna keep going and going and going. First of all, We got a lightning round coming up. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
We got a lightning round coming up. Yeah. Some of these I could probably answer myself, but I'm curious to see what you say.
I'm gonna make sure I say things that you wouldn't know.
Yeah, it's because I'm gonna say you cap. If you cap, I'm gonna say you cap for sure. I'm looking at a couple of these and I'm like, nah, There's only one that I don't necessarily know the answer to per se. But the rest of them, I'm definitely gonna say you cap if you lie. There's two of them I don't know. All right. But before we get into that, first of all, let me remind you all that this is powered by the Content Creation Studio. I got to give people their flowers while they're around. First of all, I got my dog Eric over here that you can't hear. He's on the boards doing everything. He's editing the videos. He's recording it all. I don't know how to work microphones. So if you've ever seen a mess up and the mic's acting wacky and he comes in and saves the day for me, I don't know how to do any of that stuff. So I need people like him. Shout out to Eric. Shout out to the Content Creation Studio. Y'all need to tap in. The Content Creation Studio is in Denver, Colorado. Stop making excuses. If you have a voice that needs to be heard, tap in. I'm being powered by them. Also, find me and things I do on tribalhaven.me. I got the blog. I got services that you can book me for. I got my actual book that we're talking about there, The Deciding Factor, authored by me, but edited by my sister and Forever Riot. So their editing services are phenomenal. There's some advice that she gave me I didn't take, and it's not because it wasn't good advice. Actually, there's some mistakes in the book that I should have taken her advice about. So there's like some typos and stuff in there because I didn't take advice, and I stopped wanting to look over it because I wanted to get it out, blah, blah, blah. But they literally like all of the best things about the book, other than it existing and being written, came from Forever Riot and my sister. There's so many things to think about. So if you need these services, literally, I mean, it's beyond a professional level. Y'all don't know who edits textbooks. Y'all don't know. Y'all just know that they're highly accurate, okay? So these people understand what they're doing at an extremely high level of execution, and she's not doing it under some company. She has to operate at a high level to pay the bills, and the bills getting paid, okay? So book those services. I don't have some of the products with me that normally I might be marketing, such as different waters and such. If you are a product or service.
You're wearing crafty though.
Hold on. You about to get me doing brand promotion that I wasn't about to do yet. So listen, what I was about to say is, if you have a product or a service that you would like exposure for, and you believe that I would believe in your product or service, hit me up. Maybe we could work something out and then, do some product placement or whatever the case may be. I would like to have a sponsor that's not just Tribal Haven, because all this stuff is sponsored by Tribal Haven, powered by the Content Creation Studio. But also, I like to work with companies and brands that I believe in. Hence some of the waters and things, hence Crafty. This is a buddy of mine who created this brand that's about to drop a new, a whole huge collection actually for the fall season. And they haven't dropped in a while, so it's highly anticipated. But Crafty Collective, go find that on social media. But things like that I do intentionally. So as you can see, I'm somewhat of a stylish guy. I will not only rock the clothes, but I will support your brand as long as I support the mission. I want to empower these small and medium businesses that would like exposure. So tap in, tap in. We're about to get into the lightning round. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do you remember the order of some of these questions? All right. Favorite movie?
Little Miss Sunshine.
You've told me that before. That's not cap.
And you've never seen it.
Yeah, I don't remember what it's about.
Michael Scott's in it. He's playing a serious role.
Oh yeah. That's 40-Year-Old Virgin.
He is.
Yep.
My man's.
From The Office.
I have like a really dry sense of humor, and it's just one of those movies that speaks to me. But if you don't have that kind of humor, it's not funny at all.
Yeah, but people should. People who don't think like The Office is funny are just unusual. That's hella weird. But that kind of humor. All right. Favorite book?
I was just talking about this yesterday. A book that I always read, maybe once a year is This Is How You Lose Her. And I don't want to mess up his name.
I wasn't expecting that. I was thinking about the Little Fires book.
Oh, damn. I read that too.
You always read that.
Okay, I really like The Fire Next Time by
Next
James
Time.
Baldwin, which Solo refuses to read.
No, I'm gonna read it.
I got it for him for his birthday like 3 or 4 years ago at this point. I'm not gonna shame you.
I'm gonna read it, but
But-
remember I read the domestic terrorism book.
Yeah,
and I needed to
know.
I need to decompress.
I think This Is How You Lose Her is by
I love James Baldwin.
Juno Diaz. Shout out to that man.
Mm-hmm. Favorite food?
Oh gosh.
There's like you don't have to. It doesn't have to be like.
It doesn't matter anymore. Food is irrelevant to me.
Well, because
I'm gluten free.
And dairy
recently
free.
discovered.
And dairy free.
So
Yep.
no, I actually just found out a few months ago.
We both love cheese. And
I
bread.
would say like mac and cheese, like Alfredo.
Well, you can say whatever. What's the truth? And then I have a follow-up question.
Okay. I really love mac and cheese. You know that.
We share that. Very deep, burning passion, and we're willing to pay the cost.
I'm not anymore.
Whatever the cost is.
I paid the cost a month ago. And
we will make the sacrifice. Favorite gluten-free recipe?
My favorite gluten-free recipe.
Mm-hmm. You don't have my recipe, so
I've made some really good gluten-free things.
Yes, you have.
The gluten-free eggplant parm, real bomb.
Fire. Is that gluten-free?
Yes.
Oh,
gluten-free.
It doesn't have breadcrumbs?
Tuscan chicken, gluten-free breadcrumbs.
Oh, that's yes, sir.
The
Tuscan chicken. I can dig that. I'm down.
Pretty much anything that I have learned how to make recently.
All right. Favorite person right now?
What do you mean person?
Favorite person right now? Like
probably you.
Well, I was gonna ask it from a different light. Like, I was also gonna say like it could be someone you admire who you always find yourself looking up things they do or say or interviews, or it could be just like your grandma. Anything.
My favorite person?
Just right now. I think it changes.
That's such a weird question. I don't know, honestly.
Is it me? I'll take it.
I'm in the mix.
I'll take it.
It could be you. Maybe my grandma. Maybe you.
I think your grandma's more accurate.
Yeah.
I think your grandma's actually your favorite person right now. For sure. It might stay that way too. Forever.
Probably.
But I'm pretty
low key,
sure
my favorite person is my therapist. Shout out to Tony. If you need a black therapist, that's my man's.
I rock with Tony. Shout out to Tony. All right. Favorite. I need to put these questions in a different order because I'm gonna ask them different. What's your favorite accomplishment to date?
I don't know. Probably starting a business that like works. That's like something I never thought I would do. I was very anti-entrepreneurship.
I remember that.
I find it to be very
we used to
obnoxious.
butt heads.
It's a lot of work to be an entrepreneur. I think people have a lot of idealistic dreams about entrepreneurship. Like it doesn't pop how people think it pops. So I think it's kind of shocking to me that I run a business.
It's shocking to me.
Yeah.
But I had a feeling you were going to do it. You were either going to run your own or you were going to help me do all the stuff I don't want to do with mine, which you kind of do both.
Yeah.
We kind of do both for each other. So
yeah.
All right. And then do you have like a mantra right now? Like maybe a phrase that you always find yourself saying that applies to life, something you keep telling yourself, a quote right now?
I think we talked about my tattoo.
We did.
It says everything within its time is beautiful. I think that's probably the quote that I continuously come back to, especially like our seasons are literally changing so oddly. Like, are we still in a pandemic? Are we not? Like,
Who knows?
like it's just a very odd time where you have to cherish
knows.
what is happening in the moment, and be okay with how things are changing. So I think that's probably the biggest.
Everything within its time is beautiful. I can dig that. I like that a lot, actually. And then that's it for the lightning round. But I do want to. I don't always do this, but I do want to end us. I want to bring us out with a quote from chapter 8. And I'm going to read it in just a moment. Before I do that, I just want to say thank you, and I want to reiterate that you are my lovely, intelligent queen. And I think it's super fascinating, even having people listen to all this stuff. The differences that we have, some people would believe are just too big to move forward with someone. But I believe that you and I are proof that depending on the type of person you choose to be with, it's on you. You know, like don't worry about some of those specifics, like you are in pursuit of your Ph.D. and I'm a college dropout and high school dropout. But people look at stuff like that, or like the type of family that you come from, and I'm not going to get into it, but and they will choose not to move forward in a thing or with a person because of something like that, or like a business idea. But it's just so fascinating, the way that we've been able to transcend what our environment may think about what we're doing separately, and even just us being together. So I want to say thank you for coming and allowing me to illustrate something that I'm always talking about. But sometimes it's hard for me to illustrate it in two people on the show, because I relate in a lot of obvious ways to everyone who I've had here up to this point, and we don't relate in any obvious ways, but all the important things are square. And so just thank you very deeply for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was always right, because this is also your book in part as well. You're one of the most relevant pieces to this book other than me. Straight up.
Thank you.
So it literally might not have come out, or it would have come out and been jacked up. So thank you for all that, all your contribution. And you'll be back, obviously, because there's another conversation I want to have. But with all that being said, I want to wrap us and land the plane with this quote from chapter 8. That goes, "What appeared to be a great loss has turned into an evolution in my strategy. After each of these events, I learn and understand more about what simply doesn't work. This brings me another step closer to a method practical enough to claim my personal success. It's safe to say I've never actually lost after all, and my willingness to adapt post-failure is the reason for that."
Can I just say one really wild thing? I took a screenshot of that quote because that was the quote that I actually was going to reference about my reality check, because the strategy part is what stuck out to me.
That's crazy.
I don't even think you know that I did that before we came.
I no clue. We didn't, and I didn't even look at the chapter until we were in this room.
So you see that alignment?
That's unbelievable.
I love that.
With that being said, y'all have accompanied me through this journey of another episode of Tried and True, and I thank y'all for being here too. She's been tried, and obviously she's all facts. That's why we together. So I will see y'all next time, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Bye.
Boom.